Welcome back to the best training channel on YouTube. We've got block clean pulls plus power cleans, squats and jumps, RDLs. So I'm going to get straight into it. This is probably one of my last warm-up sets that I'm going to do. Setup for today, we're going to go 2 clean pulls off of the blocks, and then we're going to go 1 power clean off of the blocks. Since I'm going off of the blocks and I'm doing a variation of pulls and cleans, I'm going to be using the straps today. I know a lot of people don't like using straps when doing clean variations. I think it's fine as long as it's not going to be messing up how you're doing your pull or how you're doing your clean. So straps is just one of those personal preference things when it comes to the clean. If I'm doing full cleans and like trying to catch the bar in a full squat, I'm generally not going to be using straps. From the blocks, doing power, using straps isn't going to be a big deal. The big thing when using the straps though is making sure that you're not death gripping this bar, because you need to still be able to turn over and receive that bar in a pretty decent position. So the way I like to put my strap onto the bar is I try to have the strap part being covered by my ring finger and my pinky, and then still having my thumb, index finger, and middle finger feeling the bar versus trying to like keep this grip in the palm of my hand. What I feel like that allows me to do is keep the strap a little bit lighter, still being able to feel the bar, but I can turn over and be able to kind of catch that bar a little bit more relaxed versus having that strap being extremely tight onto the bar where I got to catch that bar and I don't really have a lot of ability to extend the wrist. 2 clean pulls, 1 power clean. Gonna do 3 to 4 sets on this today. Looking at trying to be somewhere around probably like 75%. And then over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be building this up and probably change the rep scheme a little bit. Clean pulls, I want this bar to be somewhere at or slightly above the knee. And then I'm looking at getting into my power position and being able to explode from this position straight up. And then 1 power clean. And then there you have it. So I think I'm probably gonna be around 130 to 140. We'll do first working set at 130, see how it feels, and then bump it up maybe 135 and do 1 to 2 sets at 140. All right, just so we can get the grip part here. First off, weightlifting straps I use are these ones that are sewn together. So I just went on Amazon, got weightlifting straps, and then these popped up. I like these ones that get put together because I feel like it gives me a little bit more support in the holding the bar. But what I like to do is place my hand where I'm gonna want my hand, put the strap on the bar to where it's not like tight as possible. I still want a little bit of space between my palm and the bar. And then I'm thinking about holding the strap on with my ring finger and my pinky. And then I want my index finger, my middle finger, and my thumb to be more onto the bar. So I'm not hook gripping here. This way I can feel that there's a little bit of tightness into the strap underneath that's going to give me assistance with holding on to the bar, but there's still flexibility and I still have the ability to extend and flex the wrist as needed. So when I get into that receiving position, it's going to allow me to get into a good receiving position versus having this strap so tight that it's going to be really hard to extend that wrist. So light enough to where it can extend the wrist, but enough support there. And then again, holding on to this bar here, I'm looking at pinky and ring finger being on the strap, thumb, index, and middle finger being more onto the bar. So then that strap kind of comes through that center part right between the ring and the middle finger to where I'm grabbing the bar. And then that gives me a solid grip onto the bar. I get the assistance that I need with the strap, but I get a little bit of room to move so I can flex and extend that wrist in a way that's going to allow me to still maintain positions and hit this clean the way that I want it to feel like a clean. I don't want to feel like I'm struggling to fight against the strap as I'm doing my clean. All right, so first working set here, 130. So I did a Q&A on my Instagram yesterday, and one of the questions I got were, are block cleans easier than cleans from the floor? And then they had sort of a way of saying it was like, because this person can clean more from the blocks than they can from the floor. And I don't necessarily think that block cleans are easier or cleans from the floor are easier. What I think blocks do is they take out the most common errors in the clean and allow you to produce the most force where it's easy to produce force when doing a clean. So from this position here, if I'm going from the block, I can put myself in the correct position that I should be when I'm above my knee and just grip and rip the bar. But when I go from the floor, I have to make sure that I'm strong enough to maintain position so that I can get into that position at or slightly above the knee to accelerate the bar as fast as I possibly can. So from the block, there's just less room for technical error. You can set yourself up, you can put yourself where you need to be, and then you've got such a short range to go from where you're at to where you're extending that you can just grip and rip. There's not a lot to think about. When you go from the floor, people often make the mistake of trying to rip that bar off the floor as hard as they can. While you do want to get off the floor quickly, you still want to maintain the position of keeping that chest over the bar, pushing with the legs, trying to see that the hips and the shoulders are rising together. And then once that bar starts to clear the knee, that's when you're thinking about exploding and really trying to accelerate that bar and move it as quickly as you can. So when going from the floor, when people have cleans from the block that are more than the cleans from the floor, that generally means in that first pull, so from the floor to somewhere around the knee, they're making a technical error that's not allowing them to be in the position to move the most weight in an efficient manner. So a lot of times you'll see people try to accelerate the bar from the floor as quickly as possible, and they immediately shoot their hips up. And now they're trying to accelerate, and what's really happening is they're in a very poor position. So that bar is immediately going to slow down, and they're not going to be able to keep that momentum going. So from the floor to the knee, you need to be strong. What I tell a lot of people to do is you want to think of it as it's a back squat. I'm not trying to pull this bar off of the ground. I'm trying to keep my chest up. I'm trying to keep myself over the bar, and I want to squat that bar off of the ground. And then once I get to that position where the bar is slightly at the knee, I want to pull that bar back into myself with as much speed and force as I can, because that's where the acceleration is going to be. That's going to help you get that bar. So when you go from the blocks, it takes out that first pull. So it takes out a lot of the error that might happen when you're trying to get the bar to the knee, and then you can get yourself into a position, set up, and like I said before, grip and rip. There's not a lot to think about from here because the bar only has to move from just above the knee to right above mid-thigh. So this position here, it's a lot harder to screw that up than it is for go all the way from the floor and try to maintain that same position. So while yes, cleans from the block may feel easier, it's not because you can lift more from the block. It's usually because technically there's a lot less room for air, which allows you to make heavier lifts easier because you're in the right position. So block cleans are great for teaching you how to get into that position, teaching you how to create that force. But I don't necessarily think that it's any easier, because my best clean from a block is 195. My best clean from the floor is 200. So I can clean more from the floor, but that's just because technically I'm proficient enough to be able to do that. And the same thing with my snatch. I've snatched 165 off of blocks, and I've hit 160 off of the ground. So there is kind of like a yes and no to that. Yes, they're easier, but it's not easier because you can lift more specifically because of the block. It's easier because there's less room for air, which allows you to make more lifts and essentially lift more weight because you're more efficient at getting heavier loads up to the shoulder. So I'm gonna do one more at 130 right here, and then I am going to put on 140 and do one last set. Second thing for today, squats, seated box jumps. I'm going to maintain that pause on the squat just because I really liked how it felt on the last training block, so I'm going to keep it there for this block. I'm raising up the seated height on these box jumps, and then I'm adding dumbbells for safety. So I didn't program this as weighted dumbbell jumps, but the reason I'm adding dumbbells in is because last week I was doing seated jumps and I hit my head on the ceiling. So I don't want to do that again. So I'm going to be having 7.5 kilos in each hand. Maybe if I feel like there's still a lot of room to spare, I'll drop that down to 5s, because I just want enough weight that's going to keep me from smacking my head on the ceiling again, but I don't want so much weight that it's going to be changing the ability to kind of explode from that seated position. So 2 reps on the squats, 2 reps on the jumps, 4 sets on this total. I got 155 on the bar. I think that's a good starting weight for this. Next week, we'll probably bump that up to around 175. And then the week after that, try to get close to about 200 for a double. So that's kind of the plan, is I want to be somewhere, give or take 5 kilos or more at that 200 range. So 200 to 205 to 210 for that pause double when we get toward the week 3, which is going to be a heavy week for this training block. But 155 I feel like is a good spot. If I feel like it's too light, I might bump it up for the last set, but we'll see how this goes. Another thing here with the seated box jumps, because I'm doing the dumbbells, I'm going to be sitting kind of at an angle. That way I can allow my weight to be right kind of next to my hips. If I was sitting flat on there, the dumbbells would be out in front of me, which I feel like is going to make me kind of roll forward and then jump. And I want to try to jump from this seated position. So giving yourself that corner spot allows the hands to kind of sit back a little bit, be in a little bit more natural position, and allow you to explode. I can't tell how close I am, but it feels fast. So stay at 155, 3 more sets on that. I think that's going to be good for today. All right, before we get into this, I want to remind you guys, we are now less than 1,000 subscribers away from hitting 7,500 subscribers here on YouTube. Once we hit 7,500 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away 4 free pairs of the Hayes trainers from Strike Movement. Those have been the same shoes I've been wearing for the last 3 years plus almost now. So they reached out to me. They saw that I was wearing their shoes. They asked if we wanted to do some sort of a deal or partnership together. I said, of course. So this is going to be the first step on that and being able to get you guys some free shoes. So all you got to do is subscribe to the channel. Once we hit 7,500, we'll be able to send out a way that you can enter, and then we're going to choose 4 people who will randomly be able to go and get a free pair of shoes from Strike Movement. But the next thing I got planned is RDLs. We went from an elevated surface, so we did deficit RDLs, the training block prior to this. We're now going to be going from the floor. We're going to load this up a little bit more, and then over the next few weeks, really try to push this number. So I'm going to stay a little bit more on the conservative side today because it's week 1, so 125. But I'm thinking if I could get to somewhere around like 150 to 160 for sets of 5 in the next few weeks, I think that's going to be a good jump and a good number to reach for. So this being week 1, 3 sets of 5 on this. Being conservative in the first week is fine because we're going to really build on these numbers next week and then push it again the week following. I like to do my RDLs in the same position that I'd have my hands for my clean. But where you put your hands doesn't really matter too much. Obviously, you can over exaggerate and do like a snatch grip RDL, and that's really going to force yourself to get into deeper ranges of motion and be able to kind of stress the back a little bit more. After this, I'm gonna do some lunge isos and some calf raises, but y'all don't need to see everything because it's gonna end up getting real boring just seeing me hold a split for 2 minutes. So I'm gonna cut the video off here, but I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.